Hey everybody, happy Monday and welcome to Tech Time with Tammy. Today's tech is going to be on the 35730 Glamour Clear and the 35740 Production Clear. Both clears are 4-to-1 options. The Glamour Clear is for 1-to-1. It comes with a complimentary reducer that is the only kit that we sell that includes its reducer. It is what the manufacturer recommends that gets used with it. If you run out in a pinch, can you use the regular reducer that we have? Yes, but that one is catered and curtailed to go with the system to make that clear perform the way they want it to. The 35740 is our production clear. That is a 4-to-1. It doesn't need a reduction to it. It is a 40% solids clear, very user-friendly and ideal for people that are working in a production collision aspect. That clear is super user-friendly in that aspect, lays down and manipulates OEM textures depending on which ones you're trying to manipulate. The production clear does a really good job of doing that. The only reason we brought that clear on was to have a more price, budget-friendly collision-ish clear, if that's the best way to put it. We do have a lot of different people that we sell to that own collision shops. A lot of times people think that we just sell to do-it-yourselfers or people who kind of don't do this for a living. We do. We sell to quite a bit of independently owned, the ones that are still independently owned body shops, and they buy these clears every single week for their shops depending on what they're doing. A lot of people do choose to go with the Euro Clear, even in a collision aspect, but that just depends on if they're doing like full collision. We have a lot of guys that are doing almost full collision repair work and they like to use the Euro on that. But when they're doing more, small pieces or side of a car or the front end of a car, they tend to like to use the production clear. These clears you'll see that are being talked about. You don't see me if you follow like in our Facebook group or other places where I talk about the products on a regular basis. You will not see me highly recommend these clears. Why is that? It's not because the clears aren't good. If the clears weren't super top level, they wouldn't even be in the mix. I wouldn't have anything to do with them. I would not promote or sell them in the line whatsoever if they weren't of quality. It comes down more to the demand for what the people want. And the Euro Clear for a large amount of people tends to check all the boxes off of what people want. The issues with collision-based clears or production clears are they tend to create more or replicate more of a texture than just laying out like glass because they're more designed to replicate that. So sometimes when people are using like the Euro Clear, they may have a hard time not just slicking it out like glass to replicate texture, and they don't really want to do that. You want to make it look like it wasn't really repaired. Now I deal with guys that are like, I don't care about that. I don't care if it doesn't look like, I don't care if it was repaired. I like my work to look like glass. To me, that's not really what collision is supposed to be. You are supposed to try to manipulate texture, and different brands have different levels of texture. GM having very, very good texture amount to it that you have to try to replicate, different than Toyota or Ford or whatever. So those clears are catered and more designed towards that. They can all be baked, like I said. They can have the 140 cool down, and then you can, cut and buff them if you choose to. They do cut and buff nicely. They do not get to a point where they don't buff well. So the Glamour nor the Production gets to a point where it won't really buff. There are some clears right now, like when people are using like the 4000 clear from PPG, if you don't buff it in 2 days, it's like concrete. You have to buff it almost right away. When you're using the Production Clear or the Glamour Clear, they don't act like that. You don't have to buff them immediately to be able to do so. You don't have to do it within 2 days and then struggle really hard to be able to cut and buff it. They do really well even if you buffed them out a week or more later. But for, collision-based aspect, most things are kind of like get it in and get it out. So most people are buffing them pretty soon anyways. But if you're doing more larger collision or more larger high-end collision, I'd still recommend the Euro. And that is what a large amount of people do. But if you're looking for the Glamour Clear to be able to do, some people actually use it in restoration work too. I have some guys that just like the usability of it. They think the viscosity and the solids content is more user-friendly for them. Also, a lot of it comes down to just the temperatures that they're in, and some clears do better having those solids contents at the temperatures they're at, meaning this. If you spray in an area where it's on the cooler side, even on a regular basis, Euro Clear is going to be much slower for you. You're not going to be able to buff it in 12 hours. You could cut it in 12 if you have temperatures over 70, 75 degrees, but you're still not buffing it for at least 24 hours. Whereas the Production or the Glamour Clear, they can be cut and buffed in 12 hours. If you have proper temperature, you're cutting and buffing in 12 hours. No problem, no issue whatsoever. You're reaching thorough cure with proper temperatures. You're not facing over application issues with the Glamour or with the Production Clear. At those solids contents, you're just not building more than you need to. I always recommend at least 3 coats if you're going to cut and buff. You need to have proper mill build to have durability and longevity, and all of that comes by having proper mill build left on the vehicle when you're done. The elements, like you hear me preach all the time, are the thing that kill clears. You buffing them too thin can force your clears to delaminate when they would not normally. You not having it thoroughly cured can have your clears lose longevity when they would not normally. So a lot of times people's clears fail based off of the conditions and the things they themselves do that they should not do that make the clears act differently. You hear me say this all the time, but you will see a bunch of different guys have completely different results with name brand clears, totally different than the next, saying how much they hate this clear over another person, only based off of what that person did differently than the mass majority of people. That is it. Every time you see it, every time I see it, it comes down to that person did not do something that the masses are also doing a different way. So if you use a clear in a way that it's not expected or designed to be used, you're going to get the results accordingly. Your results are going to vary completely based off the next person if you're just not doing things the way that it's guaranteed to work the best. That said, do I recommend the Glamour Clear for doing like custom work? No. You're not going to achieve enough mill build, in my opinion, to bury what you need to do. It just isn't worth it. The Euro Clear does a better job and is more suited towards that. Would I recommend using the Glamour Clear on like restoration work, collision work, things like that? Absolutely. I would recommend the Production Clear for doing things like that. I don't really think the Production Clear is a good all over clear. I have had guys who have done it, but I have also seen where the Production Clear could have a little bit more ability to be prone to dieback issues. I have seen where that has happened, and I have seen where it has lost gloss, not when it was baked, but just normal air dry. So that's why I like production guys that are using, like in a production setup, to use the 40 clear over guys that are just in a makeshift booth or in a garage setting or whatever, because you just don't have the booth and the proper air movement and the proper airflow to be able to have all of the fumes be whisked away and to prevent dieback issue. So the dieback that's happening is just happening because of lack of airflow, and it's causing traditional topside surface dieback issues that buff out. But that said, you could avoid it completely if you just went with a clear that was more suited for that. So if you don't have proper airflow, if you're not in a booth setup, I think the 40 clear or even the 30 clear is not necessarily ideal. I do think that both clears perform better in a booth, act better in a booth. They work really well. They are super user friendly. They do cut and buff really nice. But if I had to choose one or the other, if I had to choose the Glamour over the Production, I would personally still reach for the Glamour in a majority of cases, just because I have seen more people have better success with the Glamour Clear. We do sell Production Clear. I'm not saying it's not a popular clear, but it's not our most popular clear. It's probably actually our least popular clear. And the only reason I keep it is because guys do like it. And I keep clears that I'm asked to bring on. And the Production Clear was an afterthought. It was a clear that was brought on like 2 years ago and, or a year and a half ago for people that wanted something in that style. So that's the only reason I have it. So if that's something that you want to use, if that's the kind of work that you're doing and it's suited for what you're doing, use the Production Clear. Other than that, I would use the Glamour Clear for doing a lot of your collision stuff. And if it's not like large collision, I just swap over to the Euro Clear. That's my personal opinion. Like, again, you always see me promote the Euro. It works in so many different situations. It gets the job done for so many people versus other clears. So I like to stick with the clears that just are not problematic, that do what they're supposed to do. The ones that it's just like textbook, I know what it's going to do, I know how it's going to work. And for a lot of people, that is the Euro Clear. That said, if you want to use either one of these clears, they're on the website. They're sold as kits. You can choose your temperature reducers. I don't recommend using fast. Again, you hear me say this. I don't like using fast on anything. So if you're going to get the hardener temperatures, I would do medium or slow, depending on your temperatures. For production, if it's above 80 degrees, always go slow. For the Glamour Clear, if it's above like 80s, 85, go slow. If you're doing completes, go with slow on either one. If you want to use a production for a complete, you can. I have guys who have done it. If you have proper airflow and all of that and you follow proper flash, you'll be good to go. Flash time, again, 10 to 12 minutes. If it's on the cooler side, you could extend the flash out a little bit longer. Always realize in the heat, you have to make your flash times a little bit faster. So again, we have both those options on the website. The website is broken down based off of collision, custom, speed, and specialty. So when you go through the website and you click on those are the clears that we say are catered more towards those types of work. So if you're looking on there, you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to go, kind of see if that fits how we have it on the website and if that's user-friendly for you. Hopefully this was helpful. RevoltAutoPaint.com for all of your needs. Tomorrow we'll come back with another tech video. Just trying to knock this information out for you guys to make everything more easy for you. Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye.